Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to MAGIA Mindset. Today's guest doesn't really need an introduction in the sports science world of football. Yes, he's been a part of 3 World Cups with the US, 2002, 2006, and 2010. He has coached in Swansea in the EPL. He has coached for UAE as an assistant and a sports performance director. He has been a sports performance director at LA Galaxy in the MLS. New York Red Bull, has worked with the most elite athletes to date. Welcome our guest, Pierre Barrieu. Roll the intro.
Shawn.
So Pierre, thank you again for putting in the time. I know you've been busy with the schedule with FIFA and everything going on, but truly appreciate it. And right off the bat, I think you have a unique story in the way you got to where you got to. So if you can quickly share with us your journey, your story of how you got to where you are today.
I can. I don't know if I can do it quickly.
At your own pace. Remember, this is yours.
All right, good. I like that. I don't want to be rushed. Yeah, I mean, I started, I was playing football and team handball in France as I was growing up. I was pretty good at both, but better in team handball. So, I picked team handball when I was 16. I had an option to go to the equivalent back then of what was Clairefontaine, which is, to give you an idea, would have been the residency for the U17 in the US. But that would be full-time football, and then I decided to combine it with the handball. And so went to university, came out of university as a sport teacher, an ex-phys teacher, and also I had the status of high-level athletes in France, which gave me a lot of time to train and stuff. Always been interested in the field of performance, strength and conditioning, which back then really was starting to exist, especially in Europe. I moved to the US after the World Cup '98 because there was a culture in the US of strength, that we didn't have in Europe. I was always impressed by the track and field results from the US team, and I wanted to see what was done here, and there was a CSCS back then, which was national certification that we didn't have. Ended up at Virginia, got my CSCS, already did the Masters of Athletic Training, got involved with first of all, got involved with the fitness coach for the university, so mostly football and basketball, and for me it was just to observe and then go back to France, But I guess the soccer program heard that there was this guy downstairs with an interesting profile, and then I'm going to fast forward here. I ended up working for men's soccer at Virginia. From there, we had a very good team, and from there we had this incredible season. So I think this is where at least the physical work get noticed. Went to the U18 national team. We did well. Got a chance for the USA national team. This is early 2002. Won the Gold Cup, and then was on board for the World Cup '02, and this was my springboard. Spent 4 years at US Soccer until the World Cup '06. Went to the Red Bulls after that for 1 year. Went back to US Soccer as a head of performance, assistant for the national team until 2011. This is where I left. I went to the UAE for 3 years, assistant coach, national team, head of performance, setting up the fitness coaching diploma, which I have done already for US Soccer, doing the same thing in the UAE. And then after 3 years there, I embarked in a quote-unquote regular coaching career with the pluses and the minuses. So minuses would be you better be mobile, and you never know how long it's going to last. I was at Sheffield Wednesday in England in a championship. I was with Bob Bradley in Stabæk in Norway. I was with Bob at Le Havre in France, at Swansea. And this leads us to August of 17 when I came back to the US to be the head of performance for the Galaxy. This finished last year, and this year I'm pretty much looking for the next opportunity. I turned down a few opportunities because I don't think I was ready to some extent. And then this year I've been involved. I've been a FIFA instructor for 7 years. So they reached this project for FIFA this year that I'm sitting as a high performance expert on the panel there.
Oh, fantastic. It's funny. I had a question lined up to go into, your relationship with Bruce and Bob and how those World Cups go. But before we go, because with the whole, I don't know if you caught it, the Lance Armstrong documentary, I thought it was pretty interesting, especially with the Tour of France. Probably, I think it was in the transition of you before coming in. Tour of France was high with Lance Armstrong during that time. And I thought a section with Michel Ferrari where they were talking about the EPO and the octane, and all you need is red cells. And we were discussing fatigue and how to maximize performance and accelerate recovery process. I want to kind of, if you can, in your opinion, of that was a unique time with that of using red blood cells. How is those approaches, and at that level that you deal with, you dealt with it at the football, soccer level, at the highest level, where everyone's trying to find that edge. In the cycling, one of them, they say, corrupt sports with using every avenue to get it. What's your take when you were listening to that red blood cells? You probably knew it in advance with using that.
My brother-in-law was a rugby player in back in the 80s, in the 90s in South Africa, and he was telling me there was some doping going on, and then some of these, just like for cycling, we talked about Lance Armstrong, he's still alive, but some of the Tour de France winners from back then are not, some of these rugby players that are big names, are not, Florence Griffith Joyner, is not alive anymore. So, it's when it comes down to the EPO, the big problem with the EPO, it's great to have red blood cells. The problem is it makes you blood real thick. Yeah. So all of a sudden, you're at risk of cardiovascular problems. This is why I haven't seen the Lens thing. I recorded it, but back then, you would see pull-up bars in like cycling hotel, because these guys have every night they want to make sure that they would hang upside down for the blood flow to come back to the for the blood return, to take place, because the blood was too thick. It was too much EPOs. And the one thing I want to tell you, it's actually football appropriate. In 2006, I'm preparing the US team to train to play at Azteca in altitude. Okay, so we trained in Colorado Springs at the Naval Academy. It wasn't 6 because this is the World Cup, so it might have been 5. And so we started the process at sea level here. So this is January, and I did like a targeted work in order for them to improve their RB power. It was to be able to be resistant and run a lot. Once we get to Azteca, which was maybe early March, I'm not sure if it was mid-February or early March. We train here hard, and then we report to the Air Force Academy. So the Air Force Academy is 2,800 meters. I'm not multiplied by 3 in terms of feet. Azteca is almost 2,400 meters. All right, time 3 for the feet.
Wow.
And we started training there, and I had a very strict protocol. They had to stay 80% of their max, because otherwise you do more damage than good. This is why we did the core of the work at sea level. But 80% of the max up there, is really nothing. So they had watch where it would beep. If they get 80%, I would tell them, what, slow down. Because we were really targeting the physiological. Right? We did the blood test pre, during, and post. We had this blood test at the USOC Center in Colorado Springs. When a US soccer player just passed out, when you get his blood test drawn, which I almost had a heart attack. I thought I was fired. And the result of this blood test, if you go by the guidelines back then, 46 to 48% of hematocrits is a sign of something's wrong, a sign of there could be some exogenic help. We had 4 players at 50% plus, And believe me, there was no APO involved with us. It was strictly the regimen of having the time to train at sea level, to report at altitude on time, and to do the adequate training, But even the guy at the USOC, because they've been around us for a while, you know what? They were telling me right now in this period, in the atmosphere, that would be a red flag in any sport, And I'm like, well, go ahead, All we've done is we've trained, the way we've been training. So it really differs because you're producing EPO. You and I are producing EPO. The question is what range. So it's not like a substance that doesn't exist that you already shoot into your body. So there's always like a question mark. This is what they have to come with a range, And actually, I used that experience a lot to prepare the 2010 team at altitude for. Not to prepare, actually not at altitude, to stay down and to prepare the team for the World Cup in South Africa, which would be played at some altitude. So.
No, it's interesting how you say that, Pierre, because even when we go on the corruption with Lance Armstrong, when you're in the athlete field and stuff like that, it's like, can you blame them? Because it's like, Pierre, you go up to them, you present to them that, hey, if we do produce red blood cells in you, you have a chance to win the World Cup. How many of those athletes will say, we're okay, we're good, let's do it? Or
well, first of all, I would never go to them, saying this, number one. I don't think I don't give them any benefit of that. None of these guys, as far as I know, none of these guys would say yes. They're not that stupid,
Okay, because that's interesting, because it's funny, because we had not the US, but when I was playing in Iran, and they made that presentation within the league, one of our sports performance. And sometimes in every certain country, there is their perspective of ethics and morals and the way they do it. So they did present us with that. They did say, hey, we have something in the sports science that we can produce the red blood cell to allow your recovery to be quicker, okay? So we can maximize performance during training. And then when it's ready for competition, you guys are all gonna have the edge over that. And about, not all of them, but let's say 60% were willing to, do it. But like I said, I'm not naming names, but it's
yeah, but that's right. Whoever presented this should be in jail. Number one, clearly, and yeah, I don't think. But first of all, I can't talk about something that never happened or will never happen.
Yeah.
But because I will never be in a position to offer anything like this ever. But my guess is, what the hell are you talking about? They were actually like kick me out, which is should. So I don't see this happening. Honestly, I really don't believe this will happen here. Maybe at the lower level, this is what the same. This is why I don't give the cyclist any benefit of the doubt. This is why I knew Ben Samson was doping, because guess what? The other one were, and he was winning. So, this doesn't come as a surprise at all. If you go back to this period, I spent a summer in France because we had some legal paperwork problems, so I missed one Gold Cup because of this, and I was with Real Sociedad. That was 2003 after the Confederations Cup. So I paid attention to Tour de France, which I never do. And then they had, I don't know how many tests, and everybody was negative until the day after the Tour de France, when they cut one trainer at the border between, it was Switzerland and whatever, Germany, and they cut the trainer with like blood patches, syringe, EPO. The whole spiel, everything was in there. The guy had finished third of the Tour de France. So the only thing that I'm saying is, you knew. He couldn't do what he did, and be the only guy out there that wasn't doping, because the other one got convicted. If you look at, in retrospect, of the podium of, we're talking Tour de France because it's the biggest one, but if the cycling event, I mean, they all get cut pretty much. I mean, all of the winners, like for like a 10-year period, get all cut, convicted, and the only one who didn't was him. So until eventually, he came clean. But that's and one of them is dead actually. Marco Pantani is dead. So yeah, and then you had the you also. I mean, there were so many factors. The one that that was mine. I was just looking at result and test result and race result, and if the guy on top, it's possible he's not doing it, but I didn't buy it. And then you have the teammate who come out as well, and there was just way too much smoke,
No.
not a fire. But going back to football, for me, I mean, 20 years ago, I could tell some running ability was just off the chart. And I'm young, I don't have the same experience, but still, I'm impressed. I'm like, whoa. Yeah, and I don't see. This was one chapter, and right now, obviously, there's nothing like it, because I don't know what product would have a football player, just like steroids do for some other sports.
Yeah, no, and now that from going from a little bit of sports science back to the soccer and coaching world and the football world, you started your senior team, U.S. national team, alongside Bruce Arena, and then you transitioned to Bob Bradley. My opinion, I think Bob Bradley's stint kind of cut short. I think he was on a good page to continue what he was doing. You guys were doing some good stuff, especially the 2010 World Cup. It was going. I think if they even let it continue for the 2014, I actually think you guys would have been on a better pace from the 2010 to the 2014 with that kind of progression. My take is, based on those environments that you've been a part of from 2002, the player group from the 2002, 2006, and the 2010 World Cup, and the environment created by Bruce and Bob, what were the things that kind of stood if you go from 2002 first, and then you progress to 2006, and then later on to 2010 in South Africa?
Well, I mean, to start with, since you mentioned it, I want to make clear that I agree with you. I'm not going to speculate about, would 2014 would have been better than, what it has been if Bob was the coach, because who knows? I don't, and that's not I will never go this route. But I do think that getting rid of Bob was the worst decision at the worst time. So this. I never changed my mind on this topic. So, it's same thing. What I'm going to tell you is how I felt. It doesn't mean that's the way it is, but obviously from the inside, I've lived these 3 World Cups differently, I'm not going to answer the question about what group was the best, because no one knows, and again, it's so personal at the same time that, different people will say different things. So, but the one thing that I was thinking about it the other day, maybe the one thing that 2002 and maybe 2010 had in common is they had, to some extent, like a point to prove. 2002, you come out of a disaster in '98, and it's a different coach, and it's a great team spirit, and it's the right mix of players. You never know if the result make the team great, or if the team, the team is influencing the result, and it's just it's two different. It's two things. It's such a complex system. But I had the feeling going into 2002 that we will do well. But I'm a young coach. I'm 28 years old. 2002. Yeah, I'm 29 years old. So I'm a young coach, and this is based on the work that has been done, and the part of, I wasn't on the coaching staff side of things in terms of the tactics, and I haven't lived a qualifying campaign. This is my first World Cup, so it's really, I would tell you, I have a great feeling, which I told journalists, even before we play Portugal, but it was hard to back it up, like I would be able to tell you for 2006, 2010. In 2006, the team hasn't changed a lot compared to '02, so you may be lacking some freshness. At the end of the day, this is not in Asia, it's in Europe, because the result of the US team are highly dependent as well on the draw, on the location of the World Cup, and then, to be fair, I think that you cannot turn back the clock, but some details changes everything. And if that penalty against Ghana, it's just like, oof. You can show it to 1 million people. I was like, what's going on here? So 2010, again, very different perspective for me, because I'm this time I'm really not active, but in a great part of the coaching staff. I've been with Bob for 4 years. We share an office. I'm doing the video, the scouting. I have an assistant. I'm supervising the physical. So I'm playing a much bigger part, or at least I'm much deeply involved than being someone brought from the outside for a 2002 World Cup. And we have a special group. We have a special feeling amongst the players. So all the credit to Bob for that. Again, this is a new, to some extent, this is a new group. It's the first World Cup for some players, and it's the right mix. And we've had the Confederations Cup together the year before, which helps. So we master the landscape. We master the altitude. We've done all this.
Confederation Cup, you guys beat upset on Spain, yes?
We did in the semifinal.
Big one.
Yes, and again, we had a common history, and it's, going back to my first statement before this, before my answer, this. If you compare the results of that 4 years, and also for me, for my 10 years, with national team, I was thinking at the end when he finished, it's going to be hard to, no matter what's happening next, and no matter who's come next. I thought it'd be hard to do better, Not that we won anything, that's the problem. We lost the Confederations Cup final. We did beat Spain in the semi-final, We got out in a round of 16, but again, I think we've achieved a lot with the group. And if you ask anyone from that 2010 group, they would tell you this was a special time for the national team. But then, interestingly enough, if you ask, I listened to Brian McBride. He did a podcast on US Soccer website, and he said, the '02 World Cup group was great for him, and then his best goal was the goal against Portugal of his whole career. So So for me, again. 2010 was kind of my baby, because it was really I was a part of the staff, and I would say like a real part of the staff. When 2002, I was the fitness coach, there to deliver what he needs to do, and it felt great. It was an incredible experience. I get along with the staff really great, but I wasn't part of the qualifying process, so it's very different. It's very different.
I totally get your vibe, and Pierre, it's funny. You have a unique approach. If I talk to you about like a player. You're one of those big-time players that's been participating in 3 World Cups. You've been a part of 3 World Cups. I think if you had to ask anybody, you would know the ins and outs of a World Cup and how you participate in it. I think it's a 1-month event. You have some X amount of games in it. If I go and ask you, what are the key roles that play in a successful run for a World Cup? Is it the player selection? Is it the way you recover in between games? Is it the environment of team camaraderie? Is it that group that you take that has amazing team spirit? What is it for you that you're like, what? I observed 2002. I observed 2006, 2010. Yes, we were fortunate in some bounces here and there, but this is why either they were unlucky or lucky. But what are the key roles that plays in a team achieving that ultimate success within a 1-month, festival?
To say before I start to say we were fortunate, I don't know if I'm going to say we were fortunate, because I can give you more examples of bad call, bad bounces, bad karma than the opposite. Let's be clear. When you are quote unquote, not anymore as much, but back then for sure, quote unquote, small teams, you don't get many breaks. And this, I got a lot of story to tell you. Yes, there was the hand of John O'Brien against Mexico, but before that, there was like a phantom PK, against one team. There was a handball on the line, against Germany, which should be a red card on the PK. It doesn't call. So, Confederations Cup, when you have like 2 handballs on the line that don't get called. There's so many. So I remember this one as much as I remember the John O'Brien. So to answer your question now, first of all, you need a team. You need talent. So the answer I'm going to give you are part of what I've lived, and what I've lived only with the US, which and because this could be, I think to some extent the criteria are the same for every team, but maybe the order is different. But at the end of the day, it's you need talent. You need someone able to manage the egos. You being someone able to prepare the team, and this is why I know. Obviously, that's my area of expertise. You prepare a team for an event like this. You have 5 weeks camps, and then the event could go for 4 weeks max. Okay, I'm not so sure about the theory out there that you're gonna, they're gonna get half ready at the beginning, and then slowly but surely they're gonna pick to the final. This is what you hear from big clubs. This is what you hear from France last time around, and I know the fitness coach really well. He's now at Real Madrid, and he's these are people extremely qualified and in their job. So I'm not so sure that what the journalists are making of is actually true. You prepare that team you prepare 23 guys to go to battle, and if possible, if it's not by the first game, it's by the second game. And not many teams can afford not to be ready by the first game. The challenge that you have physically is that you have 23 players playing in 23 different clubs. Sometimes it's not 23, but still you see what I mean, with different schedule. Okay, so you need to be able to get them on the same page physically. So the success criteria would be the making of the group, no question. And that's the job of a coach. To pick the right players, the right mix of players, the right mix of personalities. And then I would think that there are exceptions when the talent is not being picked. I can give you many exceptions in the French team. I don't know if that's specifically true for the other nation. I don't know if Iran's got a superstar that that is the best player that player don't enjoy. Will he make the World Cup? My guess is yes. So now you get France, Cantona. Didn't get along, then he doesn't make the World Cup, and there was a lot of French players that you thought would be the team that were not, and sometimes it's because it's him, and he really favors the team camaraderie and team spirit. We do as well as a US team, but it's especially early. I don't know if it's still the case nowadays. I'm not so sure because I'm not part of it. It's been a long time, but early there was a real genuine feeling, getting together, and when we had a camp, somewhere in the world, like reuniting the same spot, obviously there was some. If you go back to 2002, this is 8 months after 9/11. So there are some factors out there that makes some time special. But for me, it's really about I mentioned 3 already. Then I had this discussion this morning with Jesse Marsh on the field, on the phone, about do you play differently, when you coach a national team, when you coach a club team, how many teams out there, like, if you're talking about style of playing, and you want to name a national team, how would France play? Well, you know how France was playing, And France was playing a lot like, a lot of the other teams are playing. It's very compact. Make sure you don't concede. It wasn't pretty at all. And that's Deschamps' style. So it's also the coach's job to say, hey, these are my players. This is what I think would work for them. Or it's the coach's job to say, this is our play. Is it applicable to national teams? So it can go on forever, but the success factors, them, they are there. They're the same for everybody, right mix, right talent. If the players don't get along, the Dutch team was a good example in 10, you knew there was a lot of dissension. They made it to the final, which is an achievement, but with the talent that they have, you could tell there was so many stories coming from the inside that it's not ideal. Can it work? Yes, but it's not ideal. But I also believe that camaraderie, that special experience comes with results, So if you get the results, then it makes that part so much easier, and it's almost natural. Maybe if the guys get along real well, if you don't get the result, and this is where you get really tested, is when adversity strikes, So
no, I mean that's fantastic, because it's funny how you say adversity. I want to actually take you to down memory lane in the 2010 World Cup. I actually remember it where I was. I think I was in my room. I was watching on the TV. I actually broke my bed jumping out. I think you know where I'm going to go with this. It's the Algeria game. It's the Algeria game. I think, let's just say the 5 minutes prior to that goal happening, that buildup, knowing that you're basically, if you don't score the goal, you're out of it. And the goal just sends you through, and I think it sends you through as first place. It sends you through as first place. If you can walk us through that, that moment on the coaching staff, what's going through your mind personally, and then right when it happens, that feeling that you guys get as a nation. If you can walk us through that moment, that'll be great.
So we are in Ellis Park. Was it Pretoria or Johannesburg? Because I remember the Vuvuzela, I remember the stadium, and I want to say it was at Joburg because we had a third game at altitude. So to be verified, that was part of our strategy as well. Because again, that's an example of a late goal where we kept pushing. So when you come about mentality, and then that was one trademark, of a group. This is a unified group. So that game was very special for me because 20 out of the 23 players for Algeria are playing in France. So I mentioned that back then I was doing this. We share the scouting. Obviously Bob is staying on top of things and doing scouting himself, but then I was in charge of England and Algeria, and Jesse Marsh was in charge of Slovenia, So, you spend 6 months calling around. I've called club coaches in France that will tell me, what the hell are you calling me for? I said, well, you get this Algerian player, It's just like, why not, and I'm sitting on the bench. Again, I'm pretty sure the 3 subs are done, because we had...
Yeah, they were done.
Talking about adversity, that day, you can throw this into the category of the calls that don't go your way. Clean score, 20 minutes in, we're up 1-0 and they call it back. That's the second time they do. The game against most goal against Slovenia should have put us through to the next round. So again, and I'm sitting on the bench. This is obviously I don't remember the whole thing, but I remember thinking to myself, no, we're not going to go back home with 3 ties, 3 points, and we're not going to go back home because we tied these guys. Because early on they were very conservative. I watched some edits, some highlights maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, because we had a bunch of chances, and I'm like, no, this is not possible. This is not. And I remember telling myself this, and then. At one point again, there is the one of the players for Algeria, that was playing his friends. He's asking the bench in front of me, say how much time is left. And I have this memory. I'm like, what does he care? How much time is left? Because what 1 point doesn't do them any good. From the get-go when they were playing conservative, I'm like, what is that? Is that what they're looking for, to get a point against us? So, and then the game developed, and you can tell they're trying at some point to win. But I remember him. He could have been the 85th, whatever is in front of us, and he's asking in French, to the bench. He said, "How much time is left?" And I'm thinking, how does he care? And then I'm thinking, no, we're not going back. We're not going back home with undefeated, not with and the goal against Slovenia, just the Moedu goal, just like, I'm like, this is not. I mean, I'm never going to leave after that if that happens. And then the goal comes, and I just remember being on the corner flag and just letting it go, because I'm like, you know what? You deserve this one, so let's celebrate like it's like there's no tomorrow. It's bizarre because at this moment where obviously it was the whole staff there. Jed Merritt almost chopped my head off because he does a flip on top of the dog pile, and literally his boot come this close to my head. And then I'm thinking right away, okay, the ref is from Belgium, so it's not over because it's the 91st minute. There's 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try to waste some time. And if you look at the footage, we broke the goalpost, the corner flag. We broke the corner flag. So I'm picking up the corner flag, and I'm talking to him in French. It's just us left. I said, I don't think we can salvage this one. And he goes, yeah, I mean, put it there. Let's finish. Okay. So now the next pressure is like, okay, we get 3 minutes. It would be even worse if they score now. And at the end, it was great. I mean, at the end, it was so great. And,
yeah, I think that goes down as one of the most historical U.S. national team feelings in U.S. history. I mean, it was so great, just the celebration, everything behind it. You saw it coming because they were sitting back there. You're pushing, and then what happened in the Slovenia game? It was one of those games that U.S. didn't deserve to go out in group stages. It was like you said, it was not the fortunate call, the unfortunate. You're like, this is going to be robbery. Because of how unfortunate in the Slovenia game, and prior to that moment it was.
Yeah, and again, this is a statement to the team we were back then, and the resilience, the team spirit. We can face adversity. We had been down so many times, but we knew what we were about. We knew what we were capable of, and then it's not tooting my horn to say that also physically we can make it happen. So we're down against England. We're down against Slovenia by 2 at halftime, And in this one, we should be up, but we're not. And then we go and we get it at the end. And it was just like the locker room after that was great. Obviously, the coaching staff had to transition right away and to go get scout. We had a game to scout because Germany was about to play Ghana. I think it was Germany-Ghana, yeah. So, and again, we won the group. So within like a minute, you're going home. Next minute, you not only do you qualify, but you win the group. So, yeah, it was unique. I've lived some with the national team again because I think that decade we achieved a lot, but that one was unique. Yeah.
That one was a good one. Now, if we transition, Pierre, to the evolution, I think you came in the U.S. In the late 90s with the NCAA, and then from there to the U.S. national team. Then you went to the UAE, and you went to Swansea in England. You've been in several countries, several continents. Since the late 90s and then all the way till your Galaxy times, how has the evolution of sports science grown, and what are the significant strides you've seen? Because you've been behind the scene at the highest level for 20 plus years. So just share your stories and your feelings behind that.
Well, the evolution is like, I mean, again, to understand, how much it's evolving, or it has evolved, you got to turn around and take a look and remember, how it was, let's say when I moved to the US in 1999. There was no fitness for soccer, believe it. I mean, the question mark is, MLS this is the third season of MLS, so the landscape was so different. So I was like one of the pioneers, there's just probably 2-3 of us that are still around, that had interest and knowledge and expertise, and found a way to get an opportunity, because there were not media back then. So the evolution has gone on like exponentially since then. And again, if you look at me now, so I haven't been with the club since last year with the Galaxy. The technology goes exponentially, even in 1 year. So if you go over a 20 years period, it's just. Back then there was like cardio, and the system. When the system came out, well, it was available in Europe, but it wasn't working in the US. So I spent 2 years debugging it on the phone with people in Europe overnight for this to work. And that was the tool back then. Now this is like a very useful, but almost like a basic tool, and that toolbox, again, you better be ready, because I'm having like not a webinar, but on Thursday afternoon, I'm talking to one of these companies that is putting things out there that I think makes sense, and and you have many more, and back then, there was none, because maybe there was no market, the technology was so different. So sports science is just, it's almost like there was a sport back then, there was very little science, and now you have you really have like a sports science area, and you have sports science department in clubs. When back then, if you say a club, they probably didn't want a fitness coach, and even if they wanted one, literally there was no one out there. So this was my reasoning when I get to US Soccer in 04, and I said, listen, they have fitness coaching certification in all these federations, and here you have a league, they're starting to be a demand, from clubs, but they want people that are equipped, willing and able, and also have been trained. So we need to put something in place. This is what we did. Now you have the internet. The knowledge. The amount of knowledge that you have over the last 2 months on the internet for webinars. I could go on and on and on. Some of them you can question you can debate, the quality of some of them. For me, I find myself listening to some, and then after an hour and a half, I had one takeaway message, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure it was worth it, But at the end of the day, this is incredible access to knowledge that we didn't have back then, and
it's insane when you say, because a lot of the younger generation don't get it. Like I thought it was fascinating what Tim Grover said about Michael Jordan, how Michael Jordan's like, I like my cigars. This is why I'm paying you to figure out how to do it. And Tim Grover was like, look, I wish I was a kid in today's generation where I can just Google it. I had to go to the library, say, you know what, this reference says you can't do this. This says after the game. So it's insane from going to libraries. Now you have database right in front of you. If you don't like it, you can, like you said in the webinar, click off. But the amount of movement you had to do to get references is insane.
Yeah, and whatever, I didn't watch it, but then the one thing that you still have, no matter how much knowledge is out there, is you think over to make a judgment call, and actually made it easier on him, because he decided for him. You're still dealing with individual, like different, they're very different. So in this case, it's really coaching a player. So, the challenges are there, but it's not as complicated as what we would live, because we're coaching a group of players, and that human factor, that human bond that you can have with some players, and you may not have with other ones, is a big part of the job, So now we're in this world where there is data. Anything out there is producing data, When you talk about the evolution. So Darren Burgess was saying 2 days ago in one thing online that it's one thing that is learned over the last 20 years. And again, we're the same age, So these are when we talk about pioneers, he was with the Australia team in 10, for example. And it's more art than data. This is one thing that is learned over the last 10, 15 years. And this is it's a better way to say it, because English is not my first language at the end of the day, but it's exactly what I've been trying to explain to some younger elements or some younger people in my staff, what we do is a little piece of the equation. What you do is a little bit of our equation, and an even smaller piece of the team equation. And it's about everything else. You master that side. Can you master the team environment? Can you master the team dynamics? Can you Do you know exactly when to go to this player, what time of the day as opposed to this player? Can you read the signs? All that stuff. It's not taught at the university, or it's not taught online. This is one thing you have to learn on site, uh, and then So this is what when I heard it's art more than data. It was a good way to sum it up. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I can't have an interview with you without bringing up a player. There is a player you've dealt with, I think, in my opinion, I think it's probably the most polarizing, most biggest superstar in Zlatan Ibrahimovic you've dealt with. What is
about Beckham?
Beckham? Yes, but I don't think any stronger personality than Zlatan Ibrahimovic has been.
Oh, that's a fair point.
I think, yes, Beckham, superstar, but I think a genuine person. I think Zlatan is one of those unique. As a coach, you have to manage. How do you manage? As a player, how do you deal with? For me, if we transition away kind of from the sports science and you dealing with, because I know your background is not psychology, but you've dealt with probably the highest level of psychologically sports performance people. And in Zlatan, your days with LA Galaxy, what was the things that stood out to you about that athlete? And we can even dissect the sports performance. What made him unique? What made him click? What is it that separates not only him, but players like him from the rest?
Yeah, going back to what I was saying before, the university cannot prepare you to deal with Zlatan. Number one. So, what makes it so special? Actually, it's pretty simple. I think it's a physical specimen. Is when you not talking football to start with. There's not another example of a big guy, because it's big. It's probably 6'5", 210 pounds, with such big feet and such great feet. That's number one. So from a pure technical standpoint. Now physically, he's incredibly strong. He's incredibly flexible. And I think a lot of it goes back to his martial arts expertise and also experience. And then lastly, as a football player, he's a cerebral, believe it or not. He sees things. So it's a perfect storm. He can read the game. He's not, obviously mentally he's also a freak, because he's not afraid of anything. Nothing is going to impress him. He's physically stronger, and he's technically better. So I know it's pretty simple answer, but he might have a very serious injury today. I read online that he may have a torn Achilles, which would be most likely the end of his career. He navigated through all these years at the highest level with really one major injury, the one that he had before coming to the Galaxy, and he's still performing. He was still performing at the highest level. So technically, technically unbelievable. Knowledge of the game, the way he read the game, all that stuff is just unique. But again, what separates him as an athlete is his strength and his flexibility, which actually these two go together. Yeah.
Like for me, I think he's an exception. He's an exceptional athlete. He's an exceptional player, one of the best. When I'm hearing in the news, poor teammate, he's not a teammate like this. I look at it like the same thing when you look at the documentary of Michael Jordan or certain people. When you're at a certain level, I think you tolerate there's excellence. It's got to live up. It's like, why are you at that highest level if this is not it? And So I disagree with what the players are saying around that. I actually make me look at those players a certain way compared to that. From you, that you've seen the behind the scenes, how did you view him as a teammate, as a competitor? And I'm not talking about the games. We see the games. I'm talking about the locker room.
Of course.
I'm talking about the practices, the day-to-day, that you have the eye and you're like, hey, take it back. This guy's special. This guy puts in the work.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're not the only one, who thought watching The Last Dance, this. I was telling my wife, as I'm watching it, I was like, tell you what, this is just like Zlatan, And then as I'm saying it, my ex-assistant, Adam, is putting it on Twitter, It's like watching, Zlatan on TV. So we're thinking the same thing at the same place. Now, we only see the tip of the iceberg, on Michael Jordan during this, X many years with the Bulls. Zlatan was at the Galaxy for a season and a half, with me. No question that he's trying to teach his teammates something. That he's trying to send a message that never back down. Face adversity. If I'm challenging you, there's a reason for it. So we get that. Everybody get that. How it's received also by some, as we know, 25 players. So if you catch a player on a bad day, just like you would catch Zlatan on a bad day, then maybe you will adjust your speech. Zlatan will not adjust his speech. This is, and again, I know where it's coming from. I know what he has in mind. No question. Listen. Adapt to me, and then you will end up, better, or it would benefit you. But it's a big transition for some teammates, for some players. Again, so it was, you knew. I mean, you don't have to be on the inside to know, what kind of character he is. The one thing I can tell you about him is like, he's still a very good person. He's a very good human being, that, 9 times out of 10, if he cracks a joke, will look at you with a smirk. And it is a very funny guy. He's such a funny guy as well, Wow. I had a talk with him early on. I said, this is who I am, this is what, how I react. And he appreciates, when you stand up to him. That's the key, and you have to. You have to, because if you don't, good luck.
You coached a player.
Again, sorry?
I said you coached a player in the 2006 Onyewu that stood up to him.
Coach did, but and Coach probably would to this day, and that was a good fight. I must say, it would be an interesting fight even today. Yeah. But yeah, and going back to Zlatan, I know, for example, I needed him because a friend of a daughter of a good friend of mine in France got diagnosed with a bad type. And now I had a video message to send her. So, meanwhile, I didn't talk to him for 8 months. That's why I'm saying that that he's a good person, he's a good person. And part of the character that you see is made of, because he exaggerates. And then him within the team, it was different from many of the players that had been around. But it'd be interesting to ask them now that they've seen The Last Dance, how do you perceive Zlatan? And maybe some of them would say, you know what, now I get it, So, but again, like anything else, everything got blown up out of proportion these days. There's so many people looking for dirt that, it's nowhere near as bad.
And I think, Pierre, you know it too. You've been around this so many. The way some players, like even if you go to Cristiano Ronaldo, I know deep down the guy's an amazing guy. I know Messi. They're just the competitors on the field creates an image that a lot of media, for some reason, maybe they never played at that level. Obviously, they didn't. that didn't play at that level, and some of them, and they try to create an image because that image sells for them. But Zlatan does a good job running with it, and he knows how to promote it in aspects as well.
No, like I said, he's a funny guy. He's a funny guy. No question.
Any funny story?
I got plenty funny
We
story.
would love.
Sometimes when it's about somebody else, you think it's really funny. The day it hit you, you don't think it's that funny, but you gotta go with the flow. But again, for me on day 2, he was saying in front of I guess I barely knew him, but he knew I was French. He was coming from France, and he was cracking jokes in front of the whole team about the French. And then next thing you know, he was doing his strength in the weight room, and I go to Zlatan and I said, Zlatan, just for you to know, I'm good. I can take a lot, and I can play. I'm a good player. No problem. We can crack jokes. But there'd be one day maybe where I wouldn't take it as well. And he was like, "No, Pierre, I'm kidding." I said, "Well, I know you're kidding, but I'm still telling you." And again, you doesn't prevent him from grab you, and once he grabs you, man, he grabs you for the day. He's gonna ride you for the day. But again, he can take that, and I think he respect that. And there was so many of them. Like I said, I don't want to share these in the podcast because it's no one's business, other than the team. But yeah. So again, for me, I knew it that he was a good guy because I see how he reacts. Not necessarily when the camera is not on because he's used with the cameras, but you know what I mean. Sometimes you get in moments where you can see someone through personality, and I give you the example of like a few months ago when you need for something, and for him it's common sense. He comes right away. So that to me is how you judge people.
Sure.
For the little thing that people would do when that no one knows about, and that are not designed to be known.
And they're not looking. No one's watching you, and you're doing those things without being watched. That goes.
Yeah, because now the guy is not pretending. He's not a poser. There's so many posers out there nowadays that the guy is doing what he wants to do, and he gets nothing in return other than knowing he does the right thing. So
no, fantastic. I mean, Pierre, I know even when you went to South Africa, you've run into people like Nelson Mandela. You've met inspirational people and anything throughout your career and your pathway in the world of soccer and football. This is some unique times with this pandemic, with this coronavirus. I want to know, since you've run along these inspirational people and you are at the highest level, any message for aspiring players, aspiring coaches, families during this unique time of how to stay inspired, how to, use this, let's say, time out and to lay a good foundation. So when you do, it kind of catapults you into a bright future ahead. So if I'll give the floor to you and a message that you kind of have, if any.
I don't know if I can be really inspirational, this, especially for young kids out there. The way I would approach it, the way I tell my kids is that, we mentioned adversity before, so that would qualify as adversity. And there is this saying in coaching, you control what you can control. So my son right now is, he finishes freshman year of college here at home, doing stuff online. He's a track athlete, and then you have two ways to look at it, whether you face adversity or if you run away from it. So facing it is control what you can control. Do what, do your program, go run, and sometimes when we couldn't run, then do what you can do at home. And the rest is out of your hands, So that's a simple message, but, it's something that you always have to keep in mind. Sometimes, if it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands, and same thing in coaching. In coaching, as you gotta turn the page, move on. Turn the page, move on. When you play, turn the page, move on. it's not easily done, but you know that's what needs to be done. You know? So a lot of it is mental, you know, especially right now. And again, you know, I've noticed over my career that when it comes to mental messages, when it comes to like sports psychology, however you want to call it, you know, the shorter the message, the better. You know, unfortunately, just like for any kind of stimulus, different people respond differently to different stimulus. We had so if my message here, control what you can control, doesn't work, you know, then it might need to be heard. Something else needs to be heard from someone else, you know, or differently from the same person. But I know it always resonates to me, you know. Control what we can control. There's always a saying also in coaching that I use is never too high, never too low. You know, it's never good. Emotionally, you always want to be in that middle zone, you know. And if you refer to, I mean, I can give you an example of, I can give you practical application of never too high, never too low to pretty much everything we've talked about over the last hour. You know, we knew that Algeria, I was telling my players, Algeria is an emotional team. They're emotional. You know, this is by definition, there's the nature of them. They're emotional. And if they don't deal well with adversity, so next thing you know, we score on them. In the next minute, they get a red card. You know, so that was part of the plan. I wish it would have happened, you know, 10 minutes in the game. And then same thing here. You know, you just have to keep your emotion in check, and then control what you can control, deal with what's happening, and then look at what you can do, what's in your power, you know, and then do it. And then the rest, never too high, never too low. You know, you can feel in sports. You don't want to feel great one day and bad the other day. You know, not even within a 3 days period. You know, it's not going anywhere. So
It's fun.
And you know, part of the scouting when you scout countries at the national level, you know, is the cultural making. You know, I mean, and you know it when you travel the world as well. You know, you don't. You know, when I went to the UAE, the players were very emotional there. Again, you know, I don't know if it's the same body ran. You know, it's just
It is. Middle East. It is. I don't know if I think it's a culture thing. It's a very emotional stage. It's very impulsive. It's very emotional. Right. There's a lot of pressure culturally, from society. You know. So and they take it. They don't just. You know how some people can leave it behind the line, but when they take it with themselves to the fields too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a problem.
I know sometimes, you know, this is how I would explain the multiple coaching changes in the UAE, because you lose a game. You know, it's just like there's no big picture. You know, there's no long-term plan. You know, they just can overcome that rush of most of the time negative emotion. You know, and he explodes. You know, and again, unfortunately, I think it's very detrimental for them. You know, when you apply this to high-level sports. You know. Because you get into position like picture ourselves being so emotional after, you know, the goal against Slovenia got called back, you know, or the Clint goal got called back. You know, you would have lost your mind and then focus and stuff like this. And again, we had this like strength in us and mental strength that kept going, and then luckily you get rewarded at the end. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what else I can say, but that's something that I thought is very relevant at any age over the years. You know,
It is, and you know, it's funny how you say it. The last time I heard someone say that was, I believe it was the late and great Kobe Bryant. He was the same way, where it said you can't go high and you can't go low. You got to be here always. Because when you go too high and you're excited in the thing, you're going to be out of place again. If you go too low and it's down, you're going to be not trusting yourself. Your confidence is dropping. So that's a fantastic point, and that's so important. It's so simple, but it's so important, and people don't pay attention to that point.
Yeah, what it requires, you know, you got to be able to look at yourself, you know, and then this introspection going on. You know, you got to. Sometimes people get carried away. You know, now let's you know, even for example, right now, if I'm a position looking for the next job, if sometimes, when I was at the top, I behave in a way that I would rub people the wrong way, and they would say, "Who the hell is this guy?" And then it would come back to haunt you, Or if I would be way too low, I'm saying, "You know what? I'm not good enough. No one's gonna want me. It's not worth it." It's closely related with karma. I really believe in karma. I said that you get what you deserve, and then you plant your own seeds. So I mean, he's like the perfect example. He that works around him in the organization. He have a genuine interest in these people's lives. He's very steady. He's very steady. And he always zeroes in on never too low. Doesn't mean that you're not focused and intense. It's almost the opposite. You're always conscious that this is the zone you got to stay in. And in order for you to do so, these are the things you should do, and more than anything, the thing you shouldn't do. So
No, this is
because sometimes people interpret this as just like, okay, well, you got to be laid back. Oof, no, it's it's more complicated than this.
It is, and it's easier said than done. I think people like,
oh, absolutely.
They're like, oh, Pierre, I'm always in the middle. Okay, so imagine that whole dream job you want. Let's see if you get too excited, or can you go into that interview totally calm? So it's all of those moments that play. It's
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you go back to the Algeria example. That's a perfect example, because that's one of the few times where I say, you know what, I'm going to be high here. But I was conscious. I knew where I was. I knew what I was doing, but I was like, you know what, it's 6 months of work, hopefully we win, and I'm going to enjoy that 2 seconds.
That's a great point you said about being conscious. That's great. I say that. That's
absolutely. I know where I was. I know what I was doing. I know what time it was in the game. That's part of the job. If you don't know, then you shouldn't be doing this. But I flipped the switch back on right away. I said, now there's 3 minutes. Okay, let's go back. And then you got to stay in there, because you get another game in 2-3 days. So, I was, people hated Thierry Henry because, he would never celebrate his goal. And the way I read this, to me, was that he was celebrating, but he was staying in his zone. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't like showing, pretending being someone else. That's just his way, and maybe that was his way to stay level.
Oh, for sure. So before we close it out, last question from me to you. Favorite team of all time? Favorite player of all time? Favorite
team, you mean in general, and not that I've been part
of? Yeah, you don't have to be a part of it.
Okay.
It can be any sports as well, and it can be favorite player.
Well, for me, it's going to be one. For me, it's going to be football.
Yep. 98 France team?
No.
Okay.
No, because no, I get these teams when I was young. The team that I grew up with, FC Metz. Special to me. They won 2 cups. They still. I talked with the current coach yesterday. My first date with my wife was meet me in the stadium behind the goal. I was 16. So that's the team I grew up with. And then also Real Sociedad back then, but it was really that team because it was different.
Who was the key player on that team?
Oh, you wouldn't know. I mean, literally. The one you would know that comes from us is Robert Pires. You know Robert Pires?
Oh, yeah.
Play for France.
Yeah.
Pires. So he played for Metz, but that was, again, we're talking like when I'm in middle school. So that was a long time ago. But obviously the team is still around, and that's been the team. I don't have a favorite team.
How do you pronounce the team again?
FC Metz, METZ. Actually, Gooch played for them because I gave them a few games back in 2002, I said, hey, scout the US, these are a few names you should look at, and Gucci ended up playing for them.
Nice.
Again, other than that, I don't have a very favorite. I have a lot of teams I follow and I enjoy, but I've never had like a favorite team.
Favorite player of all time?
How much time do you have? Because I don't want to say something that I will regret.
And you can go any sport.
I tell you what, I really like De Bruyne right now.
Okay.
I really enjoy, because I was glad when my son said, hey, you know what, my little one, he's 8 years old. He said, I want a Kevin De Bruyne jersey. I said, wow, that's a great pick. Let me show you why. So I enjoy him. First of all, I think he's an incredible player, and I like his demeanor. Speaking of never too high, never too low, I think he's world class right now, and I don't know if he's getting enough credit. So he would be one right now for sure. Of all time, probably not, but because again, I don't think I've had one. I wouldn't be able to differentiate a Maradona to a. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, like I said, yeah. What?
Platini, Cantona, Zizou. Henry.
Yeah, no, because I watched the game and I think I can appreciate all the other ones as well, and then you're going to see like a great performance on the day. Obviously, I hope too many people won't get offended by this, but I rewatched France Brazil 2006, maybe 3 weeks ago, and for me that day, Zidane was insane. Insane. But then I watched the game and I was like, yeah, he was good, but he was insane, there was a lot of technical stuff and then some plays and passes. And his influence on that game that day was off the charts, he single-handedly focused the attention of the Brazilian, that he was spraying balls right and left. But in memory, I had an even better performance, So obviously he was an incredible player. Platini was, there was like a midfield back in the day with France, like a midfield four, because Platini was one, but for me it was Tigana, Gires, and Fernandez. These guys were like incredible as a unit, So I don't watch a game saying this guy is the man, But right now I've cut myself lately saying like watching city games and like De Bruyne is just so.
And it's funny, De Bruyne. I totally agree with you, and I love your whole analogy of can't get too high, can't get too low. And if we got to go with the Algeria example for Zidane, I got to go with the 2006 being able to chip the Buffon. Who's in goal, the stage, and it's 0-0 still. Like It shows to me, it's not about the technique. Technique and all of them have it, but it's those moments that you're like, look, this guy, he's cold-blooded. Like he's even, and
yeah. But here's the kind of example to this. This cold-blooded guy head-butted Materazzi, with 10 minutes left. So
I agree. That's a fair point.
So that was. I couldn't name you I couldn't name you a list of 10 players that have been like very influential that I thought during a certain period of time was like quite dominating, but not one favorite player. No.
Not
sorry.
No, 2010 Messi. I'm just calling 2010 because you were there in person.
Well, I actually was at Mexico, Argentina. No. I rewatched the 2 days ago the 14 final.
20.
No, was it the 14 final? Yeah,
the 14 final.
Germany, Argentina.
That was an unfortunate one. I think that was his. He could have. That should have been Messi's World Cup.
And I didn't remember that game was almost like I won't say one-sided, but it was heavily tilting toward Argentina. I forgot about that, So, and then in 2018, we took care of them.
No, that's a
So, no, Messi's special. I mean, listen, again, we've played. I mean, the U.S. We've played Argentina.
You're part of the technical staff in that 4-3 game. Was it 4-3 with the free kick he scored on USA?
Is it 4-3? No, I remember a game in the Netherlands. That might have been. Was it 4-3? No, it wasn't 4-3.
Maybe
I don't remember. When was you?
I'm thinking if it was a Copa America one.
Then I was probably there. I wasn't probably there because I haven't been to. There has been a Copa America in 2007, but I wasn't there.
Okay.
It
was I think Bob Bradley and his son were a part of that team because
that was 2007 when I think they went to the Copa America. But that's my only year away from the national team. I was with Red Bull, and then but Messi. I played Argentina before. I played Argentina in New York. Messi was part of the 2005 Under-20 World Cup. That's a great story because we beat. I wasn't at the cup, but I prepared the team. Ziggy was the coach, and the first game was against Argentina, and then we beat Argentina 1-0. Chad Barrett scored the goal, and then Messi wasn't starting. He came on at halftime.
Wow!
And from the time he came on, we still won the game, but they won everything else. And I guess back then, they won the U20 World Cup. And back then, the reasoning was that it was their first game, and they wanted to send a message that it wasn't exactly. There was some kind of scandal that it wasn't exactly developed in Argentina. So, and then we were very surprised that he wasn't started, and he was playing up age, so he was 1 year younger. And from the second he came on, and the US had a very good 20 World Cup because they beat Argentina, they beat Egypt and Germany. And then they were up against Italy, and then eventually lost to Italy. But in the meantime, Argentina, they played 6 games and a half with Messi, and then won 6, tie 1.
And then Pierre, he was playing an age up during that time. When you observed him, you're like, this guy's going to be special. Could you have seen it at that time too?
When I was watching on TV. Yeah, no, listen, he was already known.
Yeah.
People knew who he was back then. So that's why he was like, the hell, we've heard about this guy from Barcelona. He's just been starting and getting some minutes with the first team. He's not starting the U20 World Cup and no, I told you. I mean, when he came on, he was just it's different. It's even more true at the youth level. People can. I mean, when you this is a guy that was starting to make a difference, against players 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years older than him. So now when you restrict him to players his age, imagine what it looks like.
People don't realize that some of these guys could play against players that were 7 years older than them when they were like 13, 14, and 15. Like, people don't realize it. If you just say to, I'm talking about people, parents, or anyone in the game that haven't gone through it, you're like, look, there's reasons these individuals are where they are. They were at the youth level. They were different.
Clearly, And again, this is kind of a lot of, Joe Reyna is 17, there's a lot of Efrain at the Galaxy, Efrain Alvarez is also very young. There's a lot of young players this age that can compete at the senior level. The question is, how much influence do they have on the game and the team and so forth. Messi was already a team changer and a game changer, So yeah.
No.
But yeah, no. So I wouldn't say Messi is I hate that feeling like best of all time, great of all time. What time are we talking about? You just can't compare. They're just like incredible players, and you never be able to compare them. Never, unless they played at the same time, on the same field. But yeah. And then I like to see the impact of the players on the team. Let's put it this way.
No, and I agree with you, Pierre. I think especially on a football team, there's 11 players. I mean, unless Messi can play goalkeeper, center back, right back, I think sometimes when you say greatest of all time, you're disrespecting. What about the greatest goalkeeper of all time? What about this other center back? You know, there's everybody's playing a role within a team. I think the beautiful thing about football is who is that team or that environment, and that year they just had that camaraderie. So I agree with you. I think it ends up being disrespectful to a lot of other teams and coaching. There's so many things that go into play, like your role within a team, the coaching, the technical staff within a team, the players. Everything's got to be right, because even when Messi, I think, and some of the great players that don't win it, you got to really look back in it. Who was their coaching staff? Who was the players around them? Everyone's got to take the credit. It just can't be that one because the media wants to make it that one.
Yeah. But we started by talking cycling, and actually, cycling is a very good example of what you just described. If you look at the latest winner of the Tour de France, it's coming from the Sky team, and then Sky team they have a better team than the other team. So now they really have like 9 very good guys, pulling, doing a lot of work with this leader, and cycling because I've been looking at it a little more closely lately. Cycling has become more of a team sport than before. And don't get me wrong, Lance Armstrong already at USPS, and they were good teams. But yeah, and for me, the only thing that I would say about the greatest of all as well is that you never know if you're going to factor the national team results, the club results, and obviously if Messi had won a World Cup, then it would be close. It would be close, but he hasn't. And then you have the Zidane and the Maradona and the Pelé. They all have. That's one thing they have in common. But if maybe Ronaldo will never win one. The one thing I want to say in Ronaldo's favor is that he's won in different teams, and that's, I don't think we'll ever be able to find out if Messi would have, won in different teams, because he will not change. So it doesn't mean I'm tilting Messi or Ronaldo, but that's something that, when you come about, if you really want to go down, if you want to compare what's comparable, then so Zidane has won in different countries. Zidane has won with different teams. Juventus, Real Madrid. Now he's winning as a coach. These are criteria that could help at the end of the day. The was going to be out there. So I'm sticking with Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, no, it's a great pick, and I think Pierre, going to your situation, Pierre.
Lost you for a sec, by the way. Just recon.
No.
Did you hear?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny how you brought up Ronaldo, and especially the field you're in. I think I'm watching from the outside. You're probably watching with a different eyes as well. I mean, that's a special athlete too. I mean, I think. I don't know if you've ever walked across him or anything like that. I mean, he's I know you said something about Zlatan. I think Cristiano's up there with uniqueness about that too. So it's funny how you say that, but
yeah. I mean, listen, the other one is also a special athlete as well. But yeah, Cristiano, his ability to last as well, is a credit. We all know his work ethic, and then again, the name you mentioned, they have things in common. We were talking about Michael Jordan. Yes, he only has one team as well, but they put the work in. They put the work in and able to last, because if they haven't lasted, then we probably wouldn't be talking about them. So
De Bruyne is. De Bruyne is.
I'm taking with Kevin De Bruyne.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, one story about him. At the during the first Clasico, Galaxy LAFC at LAFC. So, well, the first game at their place, it would have been the summer of 18, and a bunch of players are at the game, and Kevin De Bruyne is there after the game. He's in a concourse, because he knows someone from the who used to be on the Galaxy front office. They're actually pretty close. And I'm coming out of here, and I see Kevin De Bruyne, and I'm like, again, you barely know he's Kevin De Bruyne because he's just a normal guy, and you can tell, you can tell, and to the point where I'd be like, you know what, I'm gonna go talk to him, but I never do, no matter what they are, I never go bother people. But I felt, compelled to go and talk to him and say, you know what, yeah, I really, enjoy you as a player, and I was also as a person. I can tell you have a good, because I'm thinking he's going to be looking at me and he's like, "Good, this guy, was he telling me this?" He's going to say, "Great, thank you." But yeah, you could see the guy. You could see the exact same guy that you saw on the field on that concourse here, being on his own and not being noticed and not wanting to be noticed. So yeah, I think that part resonates with me too. But more than anything, it's just that again, my son likes him, and I'm like, okay, good, let me show you. And as I knew already, but I'm looking at. Speaking of someone who's influential on this team, he is.
My opinion, I think he's the most influential on that team too.
Yeah, and obviously the position is key, no question about it. But and he's been steady. If you look at, we talk about Belgium in 18. He was a force in there. So yeah, I'm not saying don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's better than a Messi and a Ronaldo or Zidane or Platini. But right now, yeah, I happen to enjoy watching him.
Oh, great. Pierre, I think this has been amazing. I mean, I think we can go for hours of just talking. I think the amount of knowledge, the amount of conversation, the amount of interactions you've had, you have so much stories that, it was a privilege of having you on and kind of getting your perspective of the game and the way you see this beautiful game. I want to kind of put it back on you and let you close this out with anything you want to add, anything you got new going on currently and you want to share with us, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was a pleasure. I can anytime you want to talk football, we can talk football. I would have been interested to hear what you have to say with your experience in Iran and everything else. I was right across the Gulf, when I was in Dubai, and actually this country don't get along at all. But yeah, for me, I'm I talked about science, going exponentially. I thought about it this morning. My goal is to when you're used to the team environment, the day-to-day work, my goal is to find quickly head of performance position for a club. And if you don't get to choose, but I would like probably to be in the US, if I can. So we'll see. But yeah, challenge, staying on top of your field. It's going fast. So right now there's no possibility to go to clubs. So we do like the other ones are doing. We're online. Told you about this thing I have in 2 days, and then hopefully quickly resume visiting friends and colleagues. Some are friends and colleagues, some are just colleagues. But that's how you learn. You got to get out there, put yourself out there.
Fantastic again. And like I said, we'll be excited to know where your next landing spot is and what fascinating things you got coming in the future. Again, thank you so much, Pierre.